It should be working.
Not the norm, not the norm, yeah, this is not the norm. Standing on the highway to head my way to not the norm. If you got no money, things ain't so funny when poverty is the norm. Not the norm, not the norm, I'm listening to not the norm. Not the norm, not the norm, yeah, this is not the norm. Standing on the highway to head my way to not the norm. If you got no money, things ain't so funny when poverty is the norm. Not the norm, not the norm, I'm listening to not the norm. Yeah, you are listening to Not the Norm. Thanks for joining us on another lovely Friday morning. I nearly said afternoon then. Lovely Friday. I hope your week's been going well out there, folks. So just kidding, just thought I'd, whoops, where've we gone there? I've lost the screen. I'm trying to I can't turn it around. Hey, greetings, guys. Yeah, that was just an intro from the radio show I used to have a few years ago. It's called Not the Norm. So I thought I'd carry on with my meme share. I hope you're all doing well out there. I've got my phone turned around at the moment, so I can't see any comments. But thanks for joining us. I'm just going to go through a few memes, mainly revolving around common law. So if you're interested in that sort of stuff, share this out a wee bit there. And the term I had there at the front, I'll turn this back around again. Hopefully you can see all that. Hopefully you were able to see me then. I couldn't actually see what was going on, but hopefully you guys did. So caveat emptor. Usually most of my videos I start out with caveat emptor. And it pretty much means, it's a Latin expression, which means let the buyer beware. The doctrine of caveat emptor means that in a sale of goods, the seller is under no duty to reveal unflattering truth about the goods. The buyer must buy goods after satisfying himself of their quality and fitness. So caveat emptor pretty much just means buyer beware. And, that puts the onus back on us, which is a good thing. We've got to do our own due diligence, as they say, and to inspect these things, and don't ever take the word of the buyer, because often they'll tell us that we're buying apples and that we end up finding out later that they're lemons. So not a good place to be. So yeah, that was just an intro. Maybe I'll just play it again just for you. It was a radio show I had there a couple of years ago. So I'm just going to set up a couple of memes here. Righto, so common law is the unwritten law of the common man, comes directly from higher self-conscious intuition. Religious codes of conduct, example, they are tuned to the 10 Commandments, summed up as harm none. These laws are for man and protect that which is lawful, law of the land, almost universal worldwide, protects those whose rights have been infringed upon, crime with a victim. So it's corpus delicti, crime is with a victim. That's the same meme there. So I'm just going to go through a few of these memes. So again, it's the unwritten law of the common man, comes directly from the higher self, conscience, intuition. Religious codes of conduct,
example is the 10 Commandments. Of course, the 10 Commandments, as you might have heard before me say, can be concentrated down into one commandment, which is simply do not deceive, which is a, it's a pretty easy thing to do. It's a pretty easy law to be able to understand. If we go and look at man's laws, we have to go and see a lawyer, and they've got books from the carpet to the ceiling, and of course they are only practicing law still. So, and they're only able to express a certain aspect of law. So they're all proficient in different areas of law. So, so we want to stick to the common law of things. Natural law. The natural liberty of man is to be free from any superior power on earth, and not to be under the will or legislative authority of man, but only to have the law of nature for his rule. And the law of nature does rule us. And interestingly enough, the law of nature doesn't really care. I'm trying to turn this around there. So you can see me. G'day. I've got the lights off here so it doesn't reflect off the screen. Otherwise, if I turn my light on, it's a bit blurry. But yeah, so the law of nature doesn't care about what we think about it. It's there, it's universal, and we are bound to it whether we recognise it or not. So that's the natural law. Actually, there's a couple of people there. Oh, g'day, Tupo, how are you? Beautiful lady. Thank you for the mahi you do out there, girl. G'day, Charlene, how are you? Thank you for you too. Everyone's doing a good job out the world in this particular crazy world that we're in at the moment. So hats off to you all. If you're all staying above water and keeping a smile on your face and trying to keep the vibe up, then that's what it's all about. So I'm just going through a few memes here on just a bit of clarification on common law, because we've got the common law assemblies being established and set up all around the Whenua, North and South Islands here in New Zealand. I think they're up to getting, if they're not there already, very close to 20 odd assemblies around the country. And one of the biggest things I'm involved with the communicators and the educators aspect of it, and it actually seems to be the biggest hurdle that the assemblies are having while establishing and getting themselves organised, and that is wanting more understanding, overstanding, understandings, as they say, on the common law and the different types of jurisdictions and the differences between the natural law, the common law, and then of course you go into equity law and all other sorts of criminal laws and contract laws, and there's all sorts of it gets ugly quickly to be blunt with it. So I just thought I'd do this live here, and we'll go over a few of my memes that I've got, and we'll just add some clarification with regards to the assemblies. I've got the page up here, so I'll put that up. So there's your common community assembly. This is the kind of bubble diagram of how things kind of fit, because a lot of people aren't very familiar with common law at all, and so joining a common law assembly as such may be a little bit daunting for some people, or just not quite gel with them because of their lack of knowledge and understanding. But the community assemblies, it works around the community. It is the hub of the common law. Is the law that we operate under in our social conduct, in our edicts, in our interactions with each other. And this is all done, of course, with the community and the community markets and the community assembly. So common law fits in with community. It is common unity. It's common law. That's what it is, and it's common to all of us. It derives from God's law, of course, at the highest realms of things. There's two types of law. I'm not sure whether you're going to be able to see it. That's the New Zealand Butterworth's Law Dictionary. And of course, then we have the, actually I haven't got a normal one, but I've got about 7 or 8 different Bibles. Actually, this one's the companion Bible. It's King James Version, but I like it because it has annotations and that. But it stems from God's law, not man's law. And so, as I say, when we start getting into man's law, we start getting into all sorts of jurisdictions that get us into hot water. We start getting into fictional areas of fiction and that's when we start getting out of our depth. So we want to stick back to the basics, keep it where it's easy, and common law is pretty much basically summed up in the edict of cause no harm. Cause no injury, cause no harm to another individual, fellow living being or their property. That's pretty much basically it. So it's not hard, it's not difficult. Now, there's a little bit of confusion with, I'll just turn you around there. There's a little bit of confusion with the hierarchy of the laws. So in the beginning, where's my other Bible? It's easier to pick up. Oh, there's another one of my Bibles there. I'll around this way. That's Black's Law Dictionary, first edition. There's banking law. Wait a minute. So that one there, I've got this one's just your King James Version of the Bible. So I've got quite a few of these, and that's pretty much your law, because there is a maxim out there, first in time, best in law. Actually, I have to do a bit of due diligence there. I looked into that again, and it's actually not quite that. It actually states that first in time is first in right. First in time is first in right, but it doesn't move away from the definition of first in time is best in law. First in right is best in law, so it's kind of another way of describing it. But God's law is the highest law. Cause no harm, cause no injury, do not steal, do not kill, do not deceive. Pretty much do not deceive. And if we're operating under God's law, which is easily, because most of us, I think 99% of us out there don't really want to kill anybody. We're not interested in stealing anybody's stuff, and we're certainly not out there to cause harm or injury. So I think this is another aspect of the word common, when we're talking about common law. So it's common to all of us. It's inherent. It's in here. It's within us. So it's common to all of us that we don't want to kill, we don't want to steal, and we don't want to harm and hurt. And all of these, and it's common law has many different handles as well, which we'll go into. I've got the Community Law Centre's definition of common law as well, and it clearly states that it's tikanga. So the tikanga is just another definition, another people's definition of common law, because you look at tikanga and where it comes from, it's God's law. It's cause no harm, cause no injury. Of course, the tikanga has a lot more ritual aspects to it, which is a lovely thing, because rituals are very powerful things. They can set things in motion, put it that way. So the common law, the God's law. So in the beginning, it says in the beginning that God made the heavens and the universe and all the stars and the planets and all the rest of it, and he made the earth and the seas and the land and all the rest of it, and then he made the fishes in the sea and the birds in the air, and he all the marsupials and animals and mammals and that ran around on the land. He made all those, and so while he had made all that, that was all operating in natural law. That was all operating in natural law. It's outside of man. Natural law is outside of man, although we're bound by it. Of course we are. We all got to sit down to go to the toilet, so we're bound by natural laws. They're inherent with having this avatar. Having your avatar comes with certain responsibilities and more so obligations. And this is where the edicts of the principles of all the religions come into play. And that's where these things are common to us. They're part of our communion, if you like, our common unity. That's what brings us together. That's what makes our community. And we live in a Judeo-Christian type community at the core of it, with these edicts and these social constructs that we live by, social rules that we live by, social duties, social rules, social obligations, to cause no harm and no injury. So, but these things, as I say, they're inherent within us, and most of us, when we get to a certain level of consciousness, we comprehend these things without being told them. And so that was natural law. So God made the universe and the earth and everything, and that all operated under natural law. Natural law was contract as well, because if the seeds didn't drop on the soils where the worms were doing their job, and the worms weren't doing their jobs, and the seeds landed on soils that weren't, conducive to their growth, then there's a contract broken, there's a breach contract there, and so things don't come to fruition, and that's how it works. So in actual fact, natural law is a contractual law, and it has, of course, rules that we are bound by, gravity being one of them, obviously. So that's where natural law was. So we had the natural law, and then God made man. Now, man was all good when he was on his own. He's like old Tom Hanks on the island. Was it Castaway? He's all good out there. He's on his own. He can do whatever he wants because there's no other conscious being there to be able to interact with. So he's just got the other animals and all that, and he can do pretty much what he wants in that particular realm. But as soon as there's another conscious being arrives on that island, that's where we start to move into common law. That's where common law gets its practice. It gets practice in the acts of what we do and how we interact. That is how the common law comes into being. So with that in mind, actually, I'm just going to flip to a couple of memes here just to help with that comprehension. Where are we here? How's it going there, Dale? Thanks for joining us. Charlene Tupo, thanks for joining us. You're just going to go over some different memes here. Actually, I'll spin you around. So there, I'll turn this light off too so there's less reflection on that screen. Oh, wait a minute. That's not the one I was after. Sorry. Where was it? So yeah, I hope you're all doing good out there in this crazy world run. So there's the common law assemblies being set up around Aotearoa here, or New Zealand, I should say. Because again, you know, once we start to understand the different jurisdictions and where they come into play in that, we have to be very careful about the words that we're using and the descriptives that we use to describe ourselves, of course. Where am I here? Oh yeah, so is contracts are binding. It does contract, so we're bound by the natural law because it contracts us. We can't move away from gravity. You know, if anyone walks off the end of a cliff, they're going to experience the natural law. That's just how that works. It's a contract and it's binding, and contracts are there. These natural law contracts are actually there for our own good. They're there to produce the best environments for us to be able to move forward in. And thankfully for our ancestors, you know, they've discovered all these things and gone through all these different scenarios and experiences and that to give us the knowledge and comprehension that we do have today. I can't quite find the meme I was after there, but this one's all good. So a person, we've got to be careful about that word person. In everyday language, we think it means another man or woman. In actual fact, it doesn't. In the legalese, once we start getting into the jurisdiction of man's law, well, you can't see that. Once we start getting into the jurisdiction of the man's law, then we start getting into a whole other realm of language that looks like English, sounds like English, but it's not English. So we need to be very careful there. So, but in everyday sense of the word, a person under common law is a living, breathing, flesh and blood man or woman, of course, although God did create man, and that included woman. So the umbrella of man also applies as the body of man and mankind, and also the individual as a man. As a group, it's men, and then we have woman and women. So, and it's written in this particular text here, the lowercase John Doe. A person under statutory law is a dead, fictitious legal entity, and it's capitalised, called capitis diminutio maxima, which I won't get into too much, but there we go. So there's, you know, there are fundamental things on which common law is based, and it's pretty much do no harm to another man and do no harm to his property. And that includes his body, because ultimately your body is your property, folks. And so you know, these terms, trespass on my private property, don't you trespass on my private property, very powerful words in law. It brings us back to the real estate, which is your real estate, which is your living being. So there we go. So I'm just flicking through a few of these memes here. I might go to, actually there's a couple in here I want to show you all. It gives some definitions of common law, and we'll go to Sir Edward Coke, who was an English barrister. He was a judge, a politician, Chief of Justice and regular Speaker in the House of Commons. He was considered to be the greatest jurist of the Elizabethan and Jacobean eras from 1552 to 1634. And he fought to prevent royal interference with the independent common law courts of England. Okay, I'm not sure if you can see that there, I'll bring it up. But here's his definition on the common law. And this guy can't really be argued with in law, pretty much because he wasn't one of the top authorities there was out there at that particular time. So he states, the common law of England is known by the various appellations, which means types, or kinds, if you like, of right, common right, public right, and communia justitia. The French call their municipal law droit, which signifies right. Okay. In the statutes of Westminster, the common law is called common droit, and in Magna Carta it is called rectum. I kid you not, the Latin word for law in the Magna Carta is rectum, or rights, I should say. And therefore, when it is said a man has a thing of common right, it is always to be understood that he has it by the common law. And it is further held that the common law is called common right, because it is the best and most common birthright that the subject hath for the safeguard and defence not only of goods, lands, and revenues, but of his wife and children, his body, fame, and life also. An act of Parliament made against common right or common law is void and impossible to be performed. For the law is reason and equity to do right to all, and to preserve men from wrong and mischief, and will never make construction against law, equity, and right, the rule being legis constructio nanquam facit injurium. I probably butchered that horribly, but anyway. And herein says Sir Edward Coke, the excellency of the common law is to be observed. Now that guy was pretty much the authority back in the day, and he made it pretty clear. We must observe the common, and of course we must, because again, it comes back to the religious concepts of cause no harm, cause no injury, do unto others as you'd be done by, or as you would have them, no, as you would do unto them, as you would have them do unto you, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. There's a few different versions of that one out there. So common law, this is probably one of the best ones I've found that, puts it in pretty much layman sort of terms. It's man's best interpretation of natural law into the physical realm through the use of conscience as a conduit. It captures the shared reality of our intuitive sense of justice and injustice, which is permanent and self-evident. That's the aspects of being inherent and time established. So again, these things, they can't be moved away from, and the way we get to move away from them is by stepping into other jurisdictions. So back to that hierarchy of God's laws. God is the divine. Okay, so it was first above all things, we have kind of divine law, natural law. Divine law, natural law, pretty much the same thing, I think. I'll posit, if you like. And so the natural law is above the common law, but then the common law comes into play when there's another living human being in the realm. And so once there's another living human being, another living man or woman on our island, then common law comes into play, and that applies as rights. Rights are the common rights, the common law, and so your rights end where mine begin, and my rights end where yours begin, but in that space in the middle there, that's where we get to create the common law. That's where we get to exercise it. That's where we become the God entities, if you like, having the gift of divinity, which is the acronym of God, being G-O-D. It's the gift of divinity. We all have that. That space in between us is where we get to exercise and become creative and, you know, establish the things that we accept and don't accept. And this is another aspect of the common law, because in actual fact the common law, when we go back to the actual definitions of it, is in fact an unwritten law. It's actually an unwritten law. It's unwritten because it applies to the different areas that are exercising it and the individuals within those areas. That was a reference I made there earlier with if you go to the New Zealand Law Society and you type in common law there, this is what will come up. It's tikanga Māori in New Zealand common law. The Supreme Court has just reminded us that our law is indeed sourced in two streams, and that the legal profession ought to be prepared to engage with Māori law as part of the common law of New Zealand. So this stuff's established. I mean, they know it. Although you can write to them, and I actually have written to the Ministry of Justice, and they've pretty much told me that they don't recognise common law. So very interesting that. What else did I have there? What was that one? Conscience. Oh yeah, so common law is intricately connected to our consciousness and our ability to be conscious of ourselves and others and our environment and how we interact and get along with each other. So, you know, you can only have common law with conscious beings. And we are conscious. We are all conscious, whether we attune to it or not, whether we resonate with it or not. You know, we can tune out and tune in as we do. We can get stuck into the collective consciousness of the system, or we can step back into the private reality tunnel of the individual consciousness, which is again where we get to reflect and exercise our common law jurisdictions. So con, meaning the Latin prefix for together, with science is derived from the Latin verb sciere, meaning to be aware of, to learn, to know intimately. Conscience is the collective's intimate knowledge of the actions required to preserve, enrich, and advance the quality of all expressions of life. Pretty paramount stuff, really. So we've got a social duty, and you know, and to ourselves, an individual duty to ourselves as well, to understand these things. Here was the other one I was looking for. So this common law is contained in our books reports. The common law is derived from two sources: the common law of England and the practice and decision of our own courts. Okay. In some states, the English common law has been adopted by statute. Now, so what's happened is that common laws that apply to what happened was, how statutes come about is that there are common laws to all of us. We all have the common. Oh, is that too reflective there? Oh, it might have been too reflective. So we all have the common laws, but what's happened is the biblical common laws that are common, inherent to all of us, got overridden by the statutes, the legislation, because what slowly happened is the common laws become established through all communities, through all shires, through all villages, through all tribes, and that they pretty much had their own common laws. And pretty much the commonest one was cause no harm, don't cause harm or injury. And so, but those common laws, there were other laws that were established within those different tribal areas. For instance, like seaside villages and tribes had different rules with regards to the areas of gathering food than the inland tribes would have had with regards to their areas of gathering food. So there were laws that were common to those areas and those tribes, but there was also the overriding common law which comes from God. So common law is multifaceted. It has different levels. If we're talking about the ultimate common law, we've got to be talking of God's law, derived down from natural law through the natural hierarchical flow that we have coming down from the Creator. So we have the common law, established by the people exercising it, and then we have statutes which is overridden, and it's those universal common laws became statuted, became written down, and that's where we have the unwritten common law and we have the written common law. Okay, and the written common law again got bogged down with the setup of the forms of government through legislature and through the Vatican and all sorts of skullduggery that's going on. So now we have legislative statute laws. So originally we had the unwritten common law, and then we had the written common law, cause no harm, and then we had the statuted common laws, which overrode those again. So it is. So the bits I've got highlighted here. Oh, you can't see that. I'll turn these around. Thanks, Dale, for joining us. Justin, g'day, mate. How are you? Good to see you out. Yeah, we must catch up. I caught your message there earlier. We must catch up soon, bud. I'll just spin you guys round so you're not looking at me muggins here. So I've got highlighted here. There is no general rule to ascertain what part of the English common law is valid and binding. That is because, again, as I say, it was determinant in the individual villages and shires and tribes and communities. And so when it became established, it becomes valid and binding within that particular tribe. So true common law is completely independent of all governmental involvement. Okay, so it's outside of government. But when we start getting statuted, when we start getting into statutes, which are the unmovable rules, government sanctioned legislation, then we're getting into another jurisdiction. Okay, they've tried to supersede and override the common laws, but first in time is first in right. Thus, it says here at the bottom here with the bottom one, hopefully you guys can see that, you should be able to. Thus, the traditional phrase at law refers to the state of law in a particular field prior to the enactment of legislation in that field. So there we have it. So again, as I was saying, just reiterating the point that there's different levels of the common law. We have, of course, Bill of Rights 1688. Which one is this one here? Oh no, it's not it. Of course, our common law becomes statuted. One of the statutes of the is the 1688 Bill of Rights. The 1688 Bill of Rights is the one of, well, it's not actually, it's not the first, because we had the 1215 Magna Carta, which established common law edicts, but it only applied to the freemen at the time, who were the barons and the lords. It didn't actually apply to the plebs or the peasants or the serfs on the land. Okay, now we spent another 400 years trying to re-establish our rights and get our rights, habeas corpus and all the rest of it, established. And so we ended up with after 400 years or so, with the 1688 Bill of Rights. It was a PDF. Okay, so and so the 1688 Bill of Rights also reinforces and establishes our common right. Oh, this is oh yeah, no, I'm not going to go over that. It's a bit too detailed for this particular live. Actually, how long have we been going? What's the time? 7:35. I think I started about 7 o'clock, so I've been going about 35 minutes. I want to keep these fairly short because I do want to upload them onto some of my other platforms there, just so I can get them out there. What else did I want to show you there? Common law here, established in legislation. So common law, very clearly established and recognised within legislation, because as I say, the statutes overrode and tried to supersede the common law. And so here we have the Imperial Laws Application Act 1988, Section 5. The application of common law in England states quite clearly that after the commencement of this Act, the common law of England, including the principles and rules of equity, so far as it was part of the laws of New Zealand immediately before the commencement of this Act, shall continue to be part of the laws of New Zealand, clearly establishing the common law as being recognised within the statutes. And that's a good thing, folks. I mean, a lot of people are getting confused and getting a little bit disillusioned with the common law and the statute aspect of it. But once you start to understand how things operate, there is always remedy within the law. There always has to be remedy within the law. And that's a fact of the matter. And there is always remedy within the law. We just have to find it. Unfortunately, we've been sold lemons and misnomers for so long, and through propaganda and mainstream narratives and all sorts of things, that we've lost the true essence of the foundations of all this sort of stuff. So, and once we get back to that, we get back to the origins, and then we get back to the original things. So, common law here is cause no harm, loss or injury. Those are laws, universal laws, in fact. There has to be a victim in order to break a law. The statutory system employs police officers, and officer is an employee of a corporation or organisation. These are debt collectors. They have no authority over living men or living man and woman, because they are agents of a dead entity corporation. And if you know anything about the corporation, of course, the word corporation comes from two words: corpse being a dead entity or body, and oration is to speak. So it's a dead body speaking is what a corporation is. So how can a dead entity hold power over the living? Of course, it cannot, unless you create joinder, which is contract or consent. And your action creates the contract. By complying, you create the contract. The action creates the contract. Okay, so that's why we have acts, because they create the contract. Okay, so you can so unless you create joined a contract consent, so the con's been sent, and without it being tested, then it's accepted. Which debtor lost at sea salvaged by the state. Which catapults you into the land of the dead, where you become a debtor lost at sea, salvaged by the state. Hence why officers ask, do you understand? Which in legalese, the language of the corporation, roughly translates to, do you consent and stand under my authority? So again, they use all sorts of words and trickery to create joinder to get us to stand under their jurisdiction. And when that happens, of course, we're bound by all their acts and statutes, rules, regulations, and of course we have to have permits and licenses and consents and all the rest of it. And so that's where all that comes in. So I was just having a drink. So you have rights, you just void them by being illiterate and complying to the corrupt systems. Remember right at the start I showed you the buyer beware. The buyer beware. So if you're being told these are apples, you get home and find out they're lemons, then you end up with a sour taste in your mouth. The reason why their power is void is because under the statutory system, or the maritime law, business law, in order to contract to be binding, there must be full disclosure between the parties involved. Okay, so there are all sorts of rules and regulations, mainly 8 of them, that come with a lawful, legal, binding contract, and only needs one of those to be at fault, and it defaults the whole contract. And so when we start looking at legislation, there's all sorts of things in there that are our remedy. There is remedy within the law, and we just need to do a little bit of due diligence and not be the guy buying apples and ending up with lemons, and looking into these things a little bit deeper. And so questioning, it's being as kings and as queens in the quest ion. And ions are power and energy, and that's what we are. So the reason why their power is void, because under the statutory system, maritime law, business law, in order to contract to be binding, there must be full disclosure between the parties involved. Okay, now they haven't revealed the totality of the contract, and so there is fault. And when there's fault, there's fraud, and that null and voids the contract. So which at birth is your parents, yourself, and the Crown Corporation. So we go look into, as I was saying before, with the legalese, the law, the legalese stuff. There's several things there. The word birth, actually means to abandon. The parents are the pair that rent the individuals who signed over. They become the informants. Usually the mother becomes the informant, signs over the child's name at birth and abandons them to the Crown Corporation. So she registers the baby's name to the Crown, thereby transferring the ownership. Okay, there's again, you go look at the definition of the word registration and it will tell you quite clearly, well, not so clearly actually, again, because it uses language that's deceptive by its nature, but it pretty much means a transfer of ownership. That's why we have the maxim that, that's why, I'll just bring this around. That's why we have the maxim in law that is possession is only 9/10 of the law. It's only 9/10 of the law because we don't hold that title. That title was given to the Crown under that name that was registered to them. And we shouldn't be using the father's name in vain, as they say. I think there's a nice little parable in there that expresses that particular maxim. See, that's the thing too, you know, folks, in both these books here, you know, you've got the Bible, and I've got a, this is the King James Version of the Bible, 1611, and we've got the New Zealand Butterworth Law Dictionary here. Both these books complement each other. There is, you know, we don't want to go throwing the baby out with the bathwater. There's lots of stuff in here that is very questionable, and there's also stuff in here that's extremely questionable. But in both of these books, there is remedy. And we can't go throwing the baby out with the bathwater because we've been given the remedy, and you know, it's up to us to be able to venture down those pathways to find that remedy. I'm trying to spin you around again here. And so stop saying people are breaking the law. Oh, wait a minute, which is birth, parents, and Crown. So there was never full disclosure. Thus, all statutes, acts, legislation, etc., which are legal terms, are voided under their own rules. Stop saying people are breaking the law when not complying, because it is incorrect and you clearly don't understand the game that you're in. Rights are inalienable. Now, I'll just clarify there, we need to, the inalienable. I'm now, through my own research and looking into it, again, it's this aspect of buying lemons and checking these things. Inalienable applies more to American law. American law, you know, they have the Constitution. They have a written Constitution that's binding. We don't have a binding written Constitution, folks. We have a Constitution that's made up of all sorts of other treaties and proclamations, declarations from other writings and that. So we have, according to the 1688 Bill of Rights, indubitable rights. Okay, we have indubitable rights, which is our jurisdictional equivalent of inalienable rights. Okay, so we need to start being aware of some of the terms we're using to describe our jurisdiction, and we need to be not so much like. Right, here's the thing, like in everyday interactions and communications with other individuals, I don't like to use the word converse because it's conning and versing, and we diss and we cuss. We diss and we cuss and we con and we verse. We don't want to be doing that. We want to be communicating. So with everyday communications with other individuals on a street level, we can use everyday English and everyday definitions of that English. But when we start moving into jurisdictions of agencies or crowns or legislative bodies or, excuse me, you know, on paper authorities, then we need to start being very conscious of the words and terms that we are using, because, you know, they can very easily get us in and out of jurisdictions and tie us into all sorts of terms and conditions that we don't want to really be tied into. So, rights are inalienable and indubitable. Privileges are granted by the Crown Corporation to an incorporated person. Again, that legalese for that word person is a corporation, a dead fictional entity, sometimes called the straw man. And It's evidenced by titles like Mr., Mrs., Miss, and surnames, which are surety names, and they are slave titles, so do not use them. So yeah, so hopefully that's given you a little bit of clarification on common law, because again, as I say, there's a lot of confusion out there, and we want to be doing away with confusion. We don't want Confucius, but we don't want confusion. Right, so back to these common law assemblies that are setting up around the country. So don't be intimidated by the term common law, or put off by it, because it has multifaceted levels according to its application and where it's being exercised. So yeah, so just so these assemblies that are setting up in all the main centres all around the country, North Island, South Island. You can go to the website here, which is, you can see it up the top there. It's nzcommonlaw.kiwi is the New Zealand Common Law Assemblies page. So you get on there and have a look. They've got a heap of information there, all about us, introduction to NCLAs. So yeah, you can get on there and find out, and of course they've got contact details there as well. You can contact them and yeah, find out all about them. Get involved with them, folks, because it's a really good thing. It is all about community, and we know how desperately the government has been going to try and divide and conquer us all, and being aware of their modus operandi and having a few tools ourselves can help us and help things go a long way. So yeah, I might just sign off there. It's I've been going for about an hour. What's the date today? 8th of the 7th. I just forgot to say the date this morning, when I started, sorry. So yeah, hope you guys all enjoyed that. I'll just say g'day there to people. Daniel, thanks for joining us. G'day Nikki, how are ya? Hope you're all good out there, girl. Keep up the good mahi. That seems to be about it. I can't see any more comments there. Hey, thanks for joining us, guys. Yeah, you can, actually, I better give myself a plug in me different pages. You're obviously on Facebook now, which is Te Ariki Pauhere Urumana. I've got Not the Norm there. I've got 910 subscribers. Help me get over 1,000. That'd be good. A few other videos there too. Some good stuff there. I cover all sorts of things. I get into the words, jurisdictions, sovereignty. There's some really good ones here. I cover the Great Reset. There's another one there on common law. It's common sense. So yeah, there's some really good videos there, and of course there's other people out there doing some good stuff too, that you're aware of. Tupo, of course, guys, get onto her page as well. This one's my BitChute page, Not the Norm. That's my MeWe page there. Oh yeah, we've got to have a bit of fun in life too. This is a beautiful quote, this one. For Rabindranath Tagore. It says, "A mind all logic is like a knife all blade. It makes the hand bleed that uses it." Beautiful, very powerful saying, that one. Actually, on that point, I'll try and end on something a little bit funny. I've got a few, no, it's not there. Gosh, I've got so many files here. It's great to get some of these memes out there, though, because they're very powerful stuff. What have we got here? I don't know, I've got a few different ones here. What's this one? School. Oh, yeah, so there was a school lesson. I'm not sure what this one is. "My wife told me to get our ginger kid ready for his first day at school, so I punched him in the face and stole his lunch money." So there you go. So there you go, folks. Don't send your kids to school. Actually, this is getting pretty serious with school too, folks. So passing in all sorts of horrible, nasty little laws where if we go into a lockdown again, which the whispers are that's what's going to happen, either July or August sometime. They go into sudden lockdown again. They're going to lock down those schools and lock your kids down in those schools, people. So, be aware, be vigilant, and don't go buying the apples from the government, and continually finding out that they're lemons and ending up with sour tastes in their mouths. So, all good, folks. Hope you enjoyed that. What I'm actually going to do is I'll download it off my Facebook page and repost it with from some of my other links pages, just to drive some traffic to some other pages. Just try and get my numbers up out there. You know how it goes, folks. Share, like, share, do all the rest of it, and stay vigilant. Keep educating yourselves, folks. Knowledge is power, and we can't have too much knowledge, but, you also have some fun in life as well. Keep smiling, keep up the vibe, and, love and light to you all. You know how it goes. Keep doing the good stuff. Thanks, guys.